All right, I'll pass it on to Hillary.
All right. I don't usually talk in front of such a big crowd, so this is a little intimidating. But I'm excited to share activity 4 with you because this is one of my favorite activities other than the AirBeam activity. And so the students up to this point in their curriculum have learned about, what is air, what's in our air, what are particles, what do they look like, where do they come from? And activity 4 really starts to address, why do we care about particle pollution? So in this activity, the students will be thinking about, how particles affect human health and specifically breathing. And the basics here, they'll be, actually, let me grab my guide. Hold on one second. I have an older version of this, of the teacher's workbook, but activity 4 should start on page or around page 49. But one of the first things the students will do in this activity is to read about the background and an introduction to learn about health effects of particles, the air quality index or the AQI, and FEV, which is forced expiratory volume. They're going to be measuring FEV using a jug, water, a plastic bag, and tubing. So usually my helpful colleagues and I are going to demonstrate this activity in just a little bit. But it's a really fun activity, and usually when we do it with teachers, they're really surprised by the results, and you'll see that in a little bit. And they also acknowledge, they're like, oh yeah, our students are going to love this activity. There's water involved, so it's a pretty fun activity to do. All right. So they're going to learn about the health effects of particles, which this diagram here is actually from a published journal, with permission, of course. We didn't steal it, but they are going to learn about how different sizes of PM can affect different parts of their respiratory system. So hopefully you guys can read that, but if not, the furthest arrow on the left there, that is representing the coarse PM size, so PM between 2.5 micrograms and 10 micrograms. And that coarse PM usually doesn't, impact the lungs and, to the deepest part of the lungs. So our body has ways to expel that size particulate matter, coughing, sneezing, even swallowing. That size doesn't penetrate as deeply into the lungs as, for example, the smallest size fractions of particulate matter. So that particulate matter can really get very deep into your lungs and then even pass into your bloodstream. And there's been research, we had a talk a few years ago about how that can pass through the blood-brain barrier and affect your brain. And this actually can potentially bring very harmful chemicals also, into your bloodstream. So there are those effects, but when they're thinking about just the effects of breathing, having particulate matter in your lungs is going to cause inflammation and irritation. If you have asthma, it can exacerbate those symptoms. So it has a lot of health effects. This is just a very basic overview of why we care about particulate matter and how it's going to affect their health potentially. So in this activity, they're also going to be learning about the air quality index, which tells us which groups of people might experience health effects from different levels of pollution. And so this is essentially a scale that converts particulate matter concentration to a scale. So developed by the EPA, which I think the thinking was, a scale with colors might be easier to understand than a concentration. So this is, converting. You can see in the columns of this table, the air quality index level of concern from good all the way down to hazardous. And the scale they've scaled particulate matter, which is in the third column, the concentration, from 0 to 12 micrograms per meter cubed, to a scale which runs from 0 to 50. And this table and this index also helps the students understand, you know, how might this level of air pollution affect my health. So when the AQI is green or good, that's a great day to be outside. It's probably not, you know, you're not going to, you may not see any effects from health effects from breathing or exercising outside. But then as we move down the table to both, you know, moderate or even unhealthy, this is when you're going to have, let me take a step back. So moderate AQI levels are generally considered good, you know, or okay for most groups of people. But then as we start getting into the warmer colors on this scale, this is when you're going to see sensitive groups, so unhealthy for sensitive groups. These people may experience health effects, but generally the public is okay. So if you have asthma, you know, if the AQI is in this category, you may not want to go out for a hard exercise session or even recess potentially. And then as we get into, you know, unhealthy and very unhealthy and hazardous, which, you know, where we were up in Sonoma County for the 2017 fires, we were seeing air quality levels at these AQI levels. And so at this point, really, it's like as soon as you walk outside, I'm sure many people in this room are familiar with the effects of wildfire smoke, but your eyes start burning, you know, you can feel that difficulty breathing, and these are when, you know, the air quality is really unsafe for all groups of the population. And this table goes a little bit further, which it actually helps translate the AQI levels to activity levels. So from kind of going to what I was saying before, with good AQI, it's a great day to be outside. And then, you know, hazardous, you know, who does it affect? Everyone. So, you know, you really want to avoid activity outdoors. It's not, and so, we had a question before. These slides will be sent to you, and you can use them in your, you know, classrooms with the teachers. But yes, there is some material in here that is not in the workbook, and that's why we'll supplement with the slides. All right. So in this activity, they're also going to learn about a few different health metrics that, you know, if they were having trouble breathing and they went to the doctor would be measuring these metrics, FEV1, which stands for the forced expiratory volume in 1 second, and then also the forced vital capacity. And the doctor, if you have had your lungs tested, the doctor really is using a ratio of these numbers, and it's a measure of how well air is leaving your lungs. So the students will be making measurements with the materials I talked about before. They're going to be measuring their FEV1, and then this activity also includes quite a bit of math, which is fun. Yeah. So with that, I think we're ready for the demo. I hope you guys are too. I think I'm not going to use the microphone, so I'll project a little bit higher, but maybe if we do it over here, that would be good.
So while we're getting set up, I was going to relate back to the AQI. During the big fires that hit from Paradise last year, hit Santa Rosa where I live, for 2 weeks the air was really bad, and so like all the public parks and pools and everything were closed, and I'm a swimmer, and you just don't want to miss 2 weeks. So finally, it was an unhealthy for sensitive groups days, and I'm like, I'm going swimming. I have very mild asthma, and I'm like, oh, no problem, right? And I was about 20 minutes into my swim and started coughing and having asthma issues, and I was like, wow, I'm somebody who should know better. Yeah, I'm sensitive, right? I was like, I'm not sensitive. But it was interesting to kind of actually physically experience what the AQI actually means. And so anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting thing, because, you know, we all get kind of anxious and want to go do our thing, and then it's like, wow, that really hit me. So anyway. And actually just up a little bit back here, these are
jug or a gallon jug. And we recommend using this brand because it's still a relatively sturdy plastic. A lot of plastics have become a lot thinner, which is good for sustainability and conservation, but these are still relatively thick. Arrowhead makes this thicker plastic that will not collapse when you do this activity. And this is a brand that is typically found at Target, so that's
Just so you guys know, you don't have to worry about any of the materials. We are going to provide you with any of the materials that are so don't worry. We're going to go to
Thank you for adding that. And there is each kit comes with a list of what should be in the kits. So that's also a helpful tool for your teachers to basically have a list of what's included and what not be. So, all right. So in this activity, I have a wash bin, and I filled it. I don't know if you can see like a third full of water. A helpful tip and trick here is you don't want to fill the wash bin too full because, as you'll see in a little bit, there could be a potential to really overflow the bin. We also have our gallon water jug here, which has a fluid ounces on the side, but that the volume measurement on the water jug doesn't account for water filled all the way to the top of the jug. So the students and the teachers will need to essentially measure the true volume of the water jug. You're going to want to have them fill the water bottle really as full as they can, trying to get any air bubbles and air at the top out. So we prepped this a little bit this morning, but as you maybe can or cannot see, there's a little bit of air at the top, so I'm going to pour the water from the cylinder in. So I'm putting it really, really close there for the center. Is it working? Okay. Well, is everything in there? Okay. Yeah. So one of the other things about this lab is that there's a nice section in the front that has the teachers help the students think about what sources of error they might encounter while doing this lab, and having any error in this jug is one of those sources of error. So how can the teacher challenge the students to make sure they're trying to get this jug as full as possible. All right. So the other elements here are a beaker, which the students will use after the activity to essentially figure out how much water they've displaced from the jug. There's also tubing, and then we've included a roll of plastic bags, which my lovely colleague Olivia will be helping you blow into in a second here. And to try and reduce your use of plastic in the classroom, we recommend that these probably can be used for the next activity. So keep that in mind as you're working with the students. But another word about this, so my colleague Olivia will be blowing into this bag, and you want to tell the teachers when they're doing this activity, don't use, a lot of times they're like, well, what about a balloon? And you don't want to use anything that has resistance. You want to measure the air that's coming out of your lungs in 1 second, and if you're blowing into a balloon, that's going to be too much resistance, and you're not going to be able to capture the true volume of air. So we have these bags, and I recommend before blowing, you kind of loosen everything up to get rid of any resistance in the bag, and then you're going to remove the air from the bag. Yes, I'm giving to Olivia, and there's also quite a bit of a mouthpiece here for the students to blow into, and that's going to be helpful later when we are trying to push the air from this bag into the jug. So before you blow, I'm going to actually set this up here. Depending on your students, so you'll be working with high school students, so they'll probably have large enough palms, but I recommend tipping the jug over before we're taking off the cap, and then you can kind of weird like get the cap off without spilling any water from the jug. So that was I've had a lot of practice, so you guys might you'll be able to try this this afternoon. But we also have a single towel for any messes that happen. And this activity also works best with multiple hands. I can't do all the elements of this myself, so having helpers is a really good thing. All right, so the next part of this is Olivia is going to measure her force expiratory volume in 1 second. So she's going to be given 1 second to blow as hard as she can into this bag. And Tammy is going to be our timer. A couple tips about this. It never works in the first shot, so you probably want to have your practice. 1 second is strangely longer than you think it is. So so that in that regard, it's good to have a practice round. So we have Tammy with the 1 second timer and Olivia who's going to take a really big breath and then blow out as hard as you can.
So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then blow.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you when to stop. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Stop.
Okay. Let's do that one more time.
Yeah. This time you
Needs to be
really
hard.
hard.
No pressure, no pressure. You need to blow really hard. Okay.
1, 2, 3, go.
Thank you so much. It was kind of long.
We're not judging on the volume of the
There
air.
might be some, reduced lung capacity due to nerves. I don't know if that's
This is really fun though, right?
Yes, yes. So the next challenge here is getting this tube underneath into the mouthpiece of the jug. And it's useful to have, this is where the second person especially comes in. It's pretty, I'm guiding it here and underneath. And there now it's under there. Sorry guys, you can't see that from here, but you will get a chance to do this later. And the jug you'll notice is still tipped, so it's not, if you have it up, it might crush the tube, so that would block the flow of air.
You don't want to push it too far up.
Yeah, you don't want to push it too far up, and it takes a little bit of.
The point was you needed to have enough water at the bottom to keep the water coming out of the jug.
Yes, that's right. I haven't tipped it too far to lose the water.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the water in the jug, and then
I can see that might take a little bit of practice.
yeah.
And you can see a little bubble here. We didn't quite, get it all.
Yeah.
So that's that error right there.
Yeah, I've never had a perfect, no error activity before.
I actually encourage the teachers to do this, or the students to do this a couple of times to practice, and then, just collect a couple different data points.
Yeah. And another thing we do, actually, you might want to encourage your teachers in California to get water here at the state, use the water that they're using to water plants or green if they have that opportunity, I guess. Okay, so from there, Olivia is going to transfer the bag onto the tube, and this is where that extra mouthpiece comes in handy. So the goal is to get the bag nicely on the tube without losing any air in the bag. So with her holding it there, you can see there's actually air capacity. But from there, you're going to want to essentially push on the bag and and get the air into the jug. Sorry.
That was a lot more air than I thought it was.
Right, and that's why this activity is really fun, because it actually is a lot more. They're not expecting that they're going to just
I didn't expect you to empty it like that.
Yeah.
Good job, Olivia.
Yes, good job. So now with the air transferred from the bag into the jug, we're going to really carefully remove the tube. And then at this point, since I have a large enough palm, I can stick my hand under here and make sure that I have a good seal there and flip it back over. And then you can see that, Olivia has displaced most of the water in this jug just from her
Yeah, from her one second practice. Yeah. Thank you for being such a great volunteer.
Along the volunteer.
Yeah. So from here, the workbook recommends actually like using the speaker to fill the jug back up. But you can do subtraction. You know the total volume of the jug because you measured that beforehand, and then you can pour out the remaining water to measure how much water is left in the jug, and then subtract those